So, welcome to this EuroTeamsUG meeting for November. Thank you all for making the time today. Just a little bit about the group for anyone that's not made a session before. The European Teams User Group was started early this year by Adam and myself. We we're both members of the Microsoft tech community. We'd met on MVP calls last year and wanted to do something like this. And Vesa Nopanen, who is a MVP in Finland, kind of joined later this year, right before we did Oktoberfest in October. So just a little bit about what is the intention of the group. The European Teams User Group is really all about growing a network of Teams professionals in Europe. We wanted to give members regular opportunities to present at meetups. Adam and myself know a lot about applying for conferences and being turned down and not getting an opportunity to get a foot on the ladder or getting practice on a regular basis. So we wanted this to be a forum where we could not only share knowledge, but give people a platform that don't have it elsewhere. Also, as well, it's about democratizing that Teams knowledge and experience. I mean, Teams is such a broad application. It has so many areas of extensibility that we can't be experts in every single area. I mean, we can't know, for example, integration with Power Apps, as well as development, as well as security, as well as voice, as well as Teams meeting rooms. It's a massive area. So it's always good to have people who specialize in different areas on to be able to give us not only their expertise, but also their insights and their opinions too. So it really is a grassroots user group that we're trying to get across. It's not has got any corporate sponsors. We are all the members who have spoken thus far is really just about bringing their passion to other users. We embrace all backgrounds, all levels of experience, and on all of those areas of Teams. I mean, if this is your first time to do a user group, then that's as good as somebody that's a seasoned conference speaker for us. It's always great to help people on their path to doing this kind of thing. So if you ever want to speak at a European Teams user group, then all you need to do is email EuroTeamsUG@outlook.com. Adam and I both review the mailbox and pick that up, and we'll be happy to book you in when the next available session is. And you know, every month Adam and I are always so impressed by the sessions that people submit, and we have many returning speakers already. So yeah, it would be great to hear from you. Yeah. So the speakers today, we have Nicole Enders, they're from Germany. She's doing Collaboration 2.0, the evolution of teamwork in Microsoft Teams. And we have Lee Ford from the UK, and his session today is on preparing your network for Microsoft Teams. So I'm really excited about this one, because I think that these are two areas in which, if my memory serves me correct, we haven't had a lot of in the past. And so again, it's always great to see fresh kind of areas and insights, and I think this is the first time speaking on EuroTeams for Nicole and Lee, so it's gonna be a really exciting session today.
Yeah, I also want to add that this is the first meet since we had the Oktoberfest event, the full day event, and all of the sessions there, I think it was like 22, 23 sessions totally. It's all on our YouTube channel for on-demand watching, and there's some great content in there. So please go in there and see if there's something for you to of interest to watch. And this will be recorded as well as normal, and so you can watch this on the bond as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Thanks, Adam. The next session for the user group is on the 19th of December. We wanted to squeeze one in before Christmas. Maybe we'll do a kind of special Christmas edition or something. I'll ask Adam for a few ideas.
We'll all be wearing those Christmas hats for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I'll doctor the image so with a little Christmas hat and some lights on it or something. But we wanted to get it in because we normally do these sessions on the last Thursday of every month. That's not going to be possible next month, but we don't want to skip any months. We want to give people, as said, those opportunities. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is, as Adam has just mentioned, as Oktoberfest or Teams Fest, as it is known. So Adam, myself, and Vesku all got together at Microsoft Ignite earlier in the month, and we had to talk about what it was that we wanted to do. We announced on Oktoberfest last month the next Oktoberfest will absolutely go ahead. So Teams Fest 2020 is on, and that is going to be on October the 14th next year. Now, we have reviewed everything. We have had Adam's done all the sessions. All the sessions are uploaded to our YouTube channel, and we are completely happy with the way that the event went. We've taken on a few bits of feedback from people that we're going to be putting into the next event, but also just to announce today that we are beginning a registration of interest to speak at Oktoberfest from January. So when we all come back from the Christmas break, the first week or second week of January, we're going to do a registration of interest. The reason why we're doing this is because probably like ourselves, you'll have a busy year next year. There are so many conferences that come up, and it needs to be kind of anticipated early on in the year. When to kind of speak at the event, but we also want to gauge interest in that as well. We would love it if that registration of interest, so we had a list of people that we know that we can contact in order to be able to speak. It's not like we don't like the idea of an open submission process. I mean, it still will be that later on in the year, but we also want to make sure that we let people know well in advance if they are interested to speak next year. The event was such a success. We are doubly determined to make it a success next time. So that is the announcement for today, that in January, the first or second week, there will be a form that's issued, and we will be calling for interest in speaking in Oktoberfest 2020. So, Adam, before we get underway today, is there anything else that you want to mention?
No, I don't think so. I think we should get going. I'm looking forward to the sessions today. So,
absolutely. So I'm just going to stop presenting. So, Nicole.
Then I share my screen.
Yeah.
So, okay, I think I share the whole screen, so I don't need to switch between the different applications. And now you should see my slide deck, right?
Absolutely, it looks good.
Yeah.
Okay, then I minimize here this so we can see everything. Okay, then I start. I'm really excited that I can do the session here. I've done it on several SharePoint Saturdays, but I recognize that every time when I'm doing this session, there's something new to talk about. So it's never the same session. It's a little bit different because of the news we have. And you mentioned it, we had the Ignite and some new announcement for Teams. So I have a new demo environment, and I will show you a little bit about my daily use cases and how happy we are with using Teams. First, a few words to introduce myself. My name is Nicole Enders. I'm working as a team lead for Cloud Workplace Solutions at CONET. And I started with SharePoint in 2007. I did several projects concerning consulting, development. It depends a little bit what are the customer needs, but the I would say the main requirements were everywhere. How can you collaborate? How can you build a social intranet? What's going on? And then when Office 365 and SharePoint Online were coming up, we recognized that we have now a mix. We have to talk with our customers about what are you doing on premise and what are you doing in the cloud. Are we talking about a hybrid environment? And since a few months, there are a lot of customers who want to know how can I work with Microsoft Teams, because it seems to be the new collaboration tool. So SharePoint is a little bit more in the background, but we will see this in the use cases, what's going on there. When I'm not working for Kona, then I'm writing books. I started with SharePoint 2013 to help the power users to handle this tool. And now this year I've published the 3rd edition of this book. So it's dedicated to SharePoint 2019, but can also be used for 2016 and 2013. And my favorite book at the moment, that's Collaboration with Office 365. I cover there the main services in Office 365. And at the end, I had to say, okay, it's more Teams book, because in every chapter I mention Microsoft Teams and what's going on there in combination with other services like Power Apps or Yammer. How can you live in a coexistence with both tools, and what's about SharePoint behind. When you want to know more about me and what I'm doing, then I have here mentioned my own blog, and I'm active on Twitter as well. But let's start. I want to tell you my story. And maybe first, we start in a private area. So when we see this picture, and I tell you that these are the oldest movie cassettes I can remember, then you get a clue about my age. Yeah, and I remember the time when I wanted to watch a movie and we hadn't it at home. So what to do? I had to go out, had to go to a movie library. When I was lucky, then the movie was there and I could rent it. I got back home, watched my movie, and if I forgot to bring it back in time, I had to pay some extra money, but anywhere I had to bring it back. And what about today? Today, I'm thinking about watching a movie tonight, and I don't have it here, but I don't have to leave my couch. I use a streaming service. I rent my movie, and it doesn't matter if 100 of people watch this movie at the same time, because it's another complete different user experience. And so the world has changed here a little bit. What about communication? Communication has changed in a similar way. If you see these mailboxes, yes, I was a fan of writing letters. I'm not so patient, so there was a little problem when I wrote a letter to my friend and I sent it on its way, and I didn't know if my friend received this letter or not. I loved the time when I was writing my letter, but I hated the time while I had to wait for the answer. Yeah, and then it could happen that my friend answered me. I received the answer. I was really excited. I was reading the text, and then I saw, okay, he didn't understand me. So I had to write a second letter, answer the questions, make everything clear. I hoped so. And then I sent it on its way, and I had to wait again. Today, I don't know if you are using a lot of instant messaging. I'm using it, and I really like it that it's faster. So I send my message. I see, okay, the other person received my message, and he starts typing. Okay, he's answering. And then there's a moment where the person stops to answer, and I think about, should I write him second information because maybe he's thinking about something I missed to give to him, and then we are quite fast and some kinds of writing emails or whatever that are all parts that were between the letters and the instant messaging. So in my private area, that has changed a lot of. The other possibility would be to call somebody, because then you have a synchronous way of communication. Yeah, and when we see this dial phone on the left side, yes, there was one in the living room of my parents, and when I wanted to call a friend, then I had no chance to escape, so I had to do my phone call while my parents could listen to. Today, for the kids, it wouldn't be the same, because if you see the smartphone here or a mobile phone in general, then you are independent of the location, so you can switch to another room and do your phone call. But our smartphones are so much more than a phone. They are our communication central. I can do everything with my phone. I recognized a few months ago that I don't use my laptop very often. I'm more using my tablet or my smartphone to do some stuff because they got so powerful, and I could even work with documents on my smartphone or tablet. I would prefer my smartphone. My boss maybe his tablet. So when we are thinking about this stack of documents, yes, a few years ago, or maybe in some companies today, it's the same. You have these documents in a physical way, and then there's a moment where you have one or more confidential documents right there. What to do then? If you have only the stack and you have no possibility to get some, I would say, some kind of metadata, then you would be fine when you say, okay, I put all these documents in a locker, and then I have the key, and I know everything is fine. Yeah, and if I want to work with these documents, then I can unlock it, get my documents, and work with them. Maybe I have a little bit problems, or I need some time to find the right document, but these are all my documents. I can work with them. Yeah, and then one of my colleagues wants to work with a document. I don't know which document, so we have to go to the locker, have a look on these documents, find the right one, and then she can get it. But I have to go with her and to unlock this section. If I give her the key, then I maybe would get some trouble, because then she would have access to all the confidential documents as well. So what would be the solution? We have a central location for our documents. They are digitalized, so I can manage with some modern tools what's going on concerning permissions, how long does somebody get access to a special document, and so on. And for most of our customers, but even for my company as itself, you have to talk about which tools can help you to manage these standard requirements. And we said we want to talk about use cases, not about the tools at the first time. So the goal is choose the appropriate collaboration tools, but what are the main use cases in your company? And for us and for many of our customers, working together on a document with approval process, maybe with sharing with different user groups and so on, that's the main use case everywhere. And that was the reason why we did so many SharePoint projects in the past. But Other use cases are exchanging information and in different ways. So sometimes in an ad hoc way. So I have only chat with somebody, but also company-wide information, like an internal communication department, or the managing director wants to share some information. And my company at Conet, we are between 700 and 800 people, and we don't know each other in person. I know the people where I'm working regularly with, but you cannot know 700 people. So building a corporate network was very important for us as well. And we said, okay, when we know how to work in such a corporate network, then we can thinking about external networks with our partners and customers as well. So this is another use case. And the next two ones are more kind of project work. So we want to manage our tasks in each project, but also in an overall view that I know what I have to do and for the whole day, for example. And what about sharing knowledge? Maybe it's a little bit close to the corporate network and to exchanging information, but we said we need some kind of knowledge management for the whole company. And last but not least, how can I support business processes? In many of my workshops, I'm using the periodic table of Office 365, and I talk about the several services. Now I have only here on the slide a few of them, but we were talking in our company when we wanted to introduce Office 365, what should we use? And we decided, okay, we go with SharePoint because the document management was such an important part, and SharePoint seemed to be the right tool for this. And because at this moment when we introduced Office 365 in our company, Teams wasn't existing, we decided, okay, we go with Yammer for the corporate network part and for doing an open conversation. Yeah, and then we had our project. Everybody was using our social intranet and so on, and it was quite successful. And then Microsoft Teams appeared, and some of us as the technical consultants, we said, okay, we have to check what's going on with this tool, what use cases can be managed with this, what's going on with this. And for my team, I can say Microsoft Teams is the most important tool in our daily business. But why? Why should I use Microsoft Teams? For me, it's the collaboration tool in Office 365. I can do my daily business with this tool. I have a central entry point for all the information I need. In the past, that was more my outlook. So the communication was more email based. Today, I would say, okay, it's split it because the external communication with our customers, it's mostly done in Outlook since now, but the internal communication is managed in Microsoft Teams. And I will show you in the live demo how we work with this. Another important aspect is for me that I can use different services like Planner and SharePoint, for example, in my team. And I have many discussions with customers who say, yes, in the past I failed to introduce SharePoint because it was too complex. I cannot work with this tool. Now I'm using Microsoft Teams, everything's fine. I can manage my documents. I have a chat with my team and so on. And then I say, okay, should I tell them that they are working with SharePoint in the background or not, because maybe SharePoint has only this bad image because it had too many functionalities for a normal end user. And it depends on the customer and what he tells me if we go into detail or not. Okay, the aggregation of the services is one aspect, and the other aspect, which is very important for me as a team lead, is that we have the possibility to communicate in this tool. So when I'm traveling, and I'm traveling a lot of the last weeks, I want to stay in touch with my team. I want to see what's going on. If I'm needed for a project, maybe a special question or so on, I want to answer very quick, and we don't want to switch between different tools. So it's great that I can do this with Microsoft Teams as well. And the last aspect here is very close to the communication aspect, that we have mobile applications for Microsoft Teams. So most of the time I have only here my smartphone and I use the mobile app. I have a call with one of my team members, or I'm answering on a chat message. I check a document, so I can do nearly everything with the mobile application. So it's not important where I'm at the moment. We can work together, and I'm so excited to show you the demo environment I have here. Only a short overview for everybody who's not so familiar with Teams. I have here a screenshot of the of an open team, and when we see here, okay, I have several teams here. For example, I'm working on a org-wide team at the moment, so it's an idea of a kind of intranet replacement I'm checking here, because in an org-wide team, everybody in your company will be a member automatically. And so I thought, okay, maybe there are several channels. For example, the general channel is everywhere in a team when you start with it. But I said, okay, maybe in the Kona team, I have something like corporate news, HR news, and other channels. Whatever you want to have, you can do this in Teams, because you don't have a standard of channeling there. Channeling is a structuring element. And in my teams, I would say every team is a little bit different. So you start with a general channel, and then you see, okay, I need another structuring element, because otherwise this one channel would mess up. So it can be quite different. And what we can see here as well, we have this lock symbol, for example, at 2 channels. These are the private channels. I know that there's a discussion in the community, why should I use private channels, or for which use case should I use them? I have here an answer for myself, because I said, okay, I have this CWS developer team, and I'm working there with my team. So we have channels for the projects we are working on. We have some other channels, but I need a channel for myself and maybe my manager, where we are working on some management stuff, or we are working on some strategy. And I want to work on this without the team knowing it, until there is a moment where I want to share this information. In the past, I would have created a separate team for this. Now I'm checking out if these private channels are working for me. If I would want to split the channel into different areas, then that wouldn't work. So I had to go with another team too, but for this use case, it's quite enough. You can also see with this bold format here is that there are new messages I didn't read since now. And in the left navigation, we see what's new, which activities are there, do I have unread chat messages, and did somebody mention me in a team. So if in the moment when somebody mentions me, that should be a very important information, so I should read it. And I can tell you, every morning Microsoft Teams is the first application I open, or it's started for me automatically, but I have a look on these notifications and I check everything, what's going on, and after this I'm starting my work. The next one would be here, this search and command bar. I love this command bar. Searching is very easy, I would say. Okay, everybody knows how to search, but the command bar, when you start with a slash, and you can start with a chat right from this command bar, or I call somebody, I don't need to switch to the chat section or whatever. I can do this with the commands. Not every user is the same, but for me it's great. So I use this go to command, for example, to switch to a special channel. That is very great when you have many teams where you're a member of, or if you have hidden teams. I have to hide many teams when I'm doing some live demos in our production. So I don't want to show you separate customer projects. Yeah, and then I can switch to the channel, and it's very easy. And the last one is here. I have a special screenshot for this. So when you want to work with other organizations like your customers or your partners, then you can invite them as a guest to your tenant, or they can do this. It depends who wants to store the data, like the documents, for example. And then you can switch between the different tenants very easily, and you get notifications when you are mentioned, for example, in the other tenant in a team. And so it's for you, it's no other tool you have to use. Everybody knows where he finds documents or how it's going on with general communication. And so what I said at a few minutes ago, that I have my outlook for the external communication, I hope that it will get less and less, and we will switch to such a communication like you see here with the different tenants in Microsoft Teams. So, time for the live demo. And I go here. I have different users, but we see here Microsoft Teams. I think I will go to the full screen. So, come on. Yeah, that's better. And when we are here, okay, I know I'm logged in with my account here. Maybe we start with my developer team here. So I told you I want to talk about use cases of our daily business, and here we started at first with the general channel, and then we recognized, okay, we have so many information here, so we have to think about what do we need as structuring elements. Today, this channel is only used to communicate in the team. For example, if somebody wants to stay in the home office or somebody is sick. In the past, that was a special process in our company. So the employee had to tell his manager he wants to work in the home office or he's sick. For home office, that was a kind of approval process. So the manager had to say, okay, that's fine for me. You can stay at home. And in the case that the employee was sick, the manager got the information. And then in both cases, the manager had to inform somebody, maybe the team, maybe a customer. And as I started working with Microsoft Teams with my team, I said, okay, I want to change it a little bit, because for the single employee, that is not a real difference where he writes this information. And so I said, okay, let's go with this idea. We use this general channel, and you post here that you want to stay in the home office. For example, here we see this. So this colleague said he wants to stay in the home office, and we use this thumbs up like a kind of, okay, it's everything fine with me. Otherwise, the other team members could write, okay, I have a problem when you are in the home office today, because I need you for a special meeting or some kind. So I wait, because I'm the team lead and I would have to do this kind of approval. And when I see, okay, for the team, everything is fine, then I say, okay, then for me, it's fine as well. And here in this example, I said, okay, maybe can we have a call in the afternoon? So I want to continue a discussion with you. But it's not important for me that he is in the office, because we have Microsoft Teams. I can start a call. For example, here I said I use this command bar, and then I said, okay, I want to call this person. Then we have our meeting. We can discuss what I want to know here, and so everything is fine. Here, it's another example. That is the case that somebody is sick. The colleague informed me, maybe he got a message from the colleague or so, and then he mentioned me, and I can see this here on the right side too. And he said to me, can you inform the customer, because there would be a meeting where this person was expected to be. And then I said, okay, I can do this, but I'm missing some information. Maybe you can help me. And so we have a discussion right here. So that's about the general channel. But we can do so much more. For example, we are doing a daily stand-up every day. And here I have an example. Okay, that's a scheduled meeting. I could also find it here in the calendar. But we said, okay, we set up a special channel. We don't want to mess up another channel with all the meeting notes. And here there was a meeting, and when I open here this answers, then I see here that one of my team members mentioned me and said, okay, you are not able to join the meeting, so we will do a recording for you, and you can get every information. Because maybe yesterday we said, okay, when we are in the daily tomorrow, then we have to do the discussion about this new project. And then I wasn't able to join, so they did this here. I can go through the recordings and stream. And then there are different options. So maybe I got every information, or otherwise I can call the others. You can set up a talk meeting, like we can do this, for example, here with the Meet Now. All right, okay, everything is fine for me. So can work on this. Okay, I mentioned the private channels already. I think we need a little bit more time to get more experience what's going on with these channels. At the moment, I really like the idea. I also know that there are limits, like you can only have 30 private channels in your team. To be honest, I have no team with 30 channels, but maybe we don't have the use cases in our company. There can be other use cases where you need such an amount of channels. But we have an idea about working in different projects. As you can see here, we have a channel which starts with a P. And that's quite funny because we had a discussion in our team. We wanted to start with this team here to organize us as an organizational unit. And then there was the first case where we wanted to do a discussion and to work on documents in the context of a project. And somebody said, okay, let's go with a new team for this. Yes, you could do this, and then you are quite flexible who is a team member, but we have special situation because many of our projects are done with our team here. And I said, okay, should we manage our team members in different teams everywhere the same, or are the projects very small? Do we need multiple channels for this project, or can we go with one channel? And then we can use here this prefix. We know that's a channel for a project, and then we can do the conversation, we can work on the documents and so on. It has a disadvantage, I know, because we cannot invite other people if they're members in the project which are not members of our organizational unit, because otherwise at the end we would have the whole company in our team. But I think you have to decide what is your use case. Would you go with a separate team, or can you go with a channel in an existing team? And for us, it depends on every project. But I like this when we are working only in our organizational unit in a project, that I have it here at one place. So the org-wide team would be the other option I also mentioned. And I have here an example about pinning a channel. I said to you, I like the go-to command. So switching to a channel I want to work in. But what about channels you're working very often with? I could say, okay, here's this org-wide team. I'm always interested in the HR news. So I pin this channel right there. And so I have my important information right there. And ame, as I said to you, that I look on the notifications every morning. Maybe the next step would be to go through these most important channels for me. Maybe these are my active projects, or I have to think about here this general channel because somebody has written that he is sick at the day. So you have to find a way. What are your needs? What is the information flow you want to support in your daily business? And here, the last one here is the chat section. That is more the ad hoc way. I like this, that you can even write a person when he's offline. So it doesn't matter if I have an idea very close to end of business, the colleague is not in the office anymore, but I write him this chat message. In the past, I would have written an email, but you want to get rid of emails, so that wouldn't be the idea. Yes, and so that's my day. I'm working here in this team, and then I have my my files here I can work on. Maybe you add some different cloud storage, and you have different possibilities, but I've used in practice here this SharePoint option. So maybe you have some other document libraries in SharePoint. Maybe you have a social intranet as we have. So you have a landing page and there are some general documents and you want to add them right here. So that's possible. Or you want to integrate it in another way. That would be here that you say, okay, I want to integrate it as a tab. So I have this document library or a special PowerPoint slide. So when I want to inform the team that I have done the session today, I could upload the PowerPoint and then add it as a tab right here. Or even stream would be an idea. We didn't do this since now, but that's an idea I have, that we add stream here in the research and trainings channel, because when we are doing workshops, even when we are sitting in the same room, we use the Meet Now functionality of Teams and we are doing a recording. So I can have a look in the workshop later on. Even when I was attending the workshop a few weeks later, I don't remember everything. So it's nice to have this recording. And for other team members who weren't able to attend, that's much more important, even with the possibilities we have now in Stream. So with the transcript and the face recognition, so you can switch very easily to the exact moment you want to know. And I really like this. Planner for task management can be a good option to be added as a tab. And I used forms in one of the channels in this afternoon. You could add forms as a tab right here. But I added a poll right in my chat, and I want to show this to you. And I think it was here in the journal. Yes. So we are very close to Christmas, and I have to say I love Christmas. So my colleague here added the question, when should we visit the Christmas market? He suggested some dates, and then I can say, okay, I have time. Oh, I would say I have time everywhere. I want to visit this Christmas market, and I go with this. He said that I can answer multiple times, and here I see the reporting. So we are 4 people, and 4 people said on the 19th would be great. So at the next user group meeting, he would be at the Christmas market. Yeah, and as you can see, I can use so different options to manage here my team. Some of my team members really like these GIFs and emojis. In some companies, it's not so popular, but every team can find its own way, and that's what I like at Microsoft Teams. So I go back to my slide because there's one big question for us, and that's what are we doing with Yammer? Because Yammer was our corporate network, and in our first solution we introduced to our 700 employees, you had a site provisioning, you had a project room for everybody, also a SharePoint room for every organizational unit, and we integrated Yammer for the conversation part. To be honest, when you know what's going on in Microsoft Teams in the as a standard, then you have as a conversation, you have SharePoint in the background for document management, and you could even add more to the SharePoint side if you want to do this. So we have the situation, many people like Microsoft Teams, but we have a social intranet with SharePoint and Yammer, so you need a strategy. And that was why we were talking about what are the pros and cons for the several tools. Working together on a document, you can't really decide because that's SharePoint, so that's not Yammer, that's not Teams, so everything's the same. Exchanging information with each other is, from my opinion, more or better in Microsoft Teams. Yes, there are the private chats in Yammer, but that they are not the same. So in Teams, I can call somebody, I can do the chat, I have these emojis, I can use the GIFs and so on, and I can even start a meeting, invite other people. So this is more convenient for the end user. Spreading company-wide information, that looks a little bit different and similar to the corporate network, because in Microsoft Teams you have this org-wide team, but Yammer, that's more community driven. So you have this open mindset, you have this groups, you have as default the option to post a message for the whole company. And in Teams, you would have to create this org-wide team and to decide what's going on there. So in Yammer, it's more offered out of the box. Yes, and task management, yeah, you have an office group behind Teams and Yammer, but in Microsoft Teams you can integrate it a little bit better. You have it more visible, that you can use Planner in the background, and that's maybe special for my team. We are using Jira. And you have also the possibility to add external services in Teams as well. So I can work with my tools I'm used to. I don't need to change there anything if I don't want to. In Yammer, I would have to go with Planner to have this integration. To answer the questions, the question what's going on with Teams and Yammer, what is the difference? For us, the answer is Teams is a collaboration tool. I should use it for project teams and maybe for org units, but Yammer should be the company network when you want to use both tools. You can every time decide that you only want to go with one tool, but if you want to go with both tools, then you need an easy way and a simple way to tell your end users which tool to use when, and then this could be an idea to go with. So I'm finished. Let's talk about collaboration, about Microsoft Teams. I really like this topic, and I think I could talk about this several hours. I write many blog articles at the moment. And for example, next week I'm on the ESPC. Maybe I see somebody there and have nice talks. So thank you very much.
Thanks ever so much, Nicole. That was a great session. I learned a lot watching that, and yeah, I know that's going to be a good one for the on-demand viewing. So I hope everyone enjoyed that from Nicole. Thank you ever so much, and we look forward to having you again. Adam, your thoughts?
Yeah, amazing session. A lot of great content there. A lot of great tips.
Thank you.
Awesome.
That's great. Have we got any, just before we switch over to Lee, does anyone have any questions for Nicole on the session? Okay, that usually, when silence usually means a good thing. So I think that was just really clearly explained, and as Adam says, I loved it. So, Lee, is Lee there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Lee.
Yeah.
We just, if you want to share up, and then we'll get on with the second session for today.
Yeah, sure, no worries. One
Brilliant.
second. So pick the right screen. I'll wait till everyone. It's fully loaded. Can everyone see it? Or
That's looking good.
well, looking good. Okay.
Looking good, yeah.
Cool. Okay. So my session is preparing your network for Microsoft Teams. My name is Lee Ford. I can be found on Twitter at Lee_Ford and at www.lee-ford.co.uk. And my sort of career has been with Microsoft UC products such as Skype for Business and Teams, and obviously Office 365 and all the other bits that go along with that. I'm a solution architect for a company called Simity in the UK, and they are effectively a Microsoft Gold partner in communications and Office 365 and all that good stuff. So today, topic is preparing your network for Microsoft Teams. The sort of the joke around that, if in doubt, if you've ever got any issues with your computer, it's either blame the network or blame the firewall. And traditionally, it's more of a joke, but actually it can actually be one of the causes of any issues you might be having, especially with real-time communication tools such as Microsoft Teams or Skype for Business. Having a healthy network or a functioning network, is really key. Without that, users are going to get a poor experience. So it's always worthwhile making sure that the network is capable of handling Microsoft Teams. So this session is going to cover some topics that should hopefully help improve the experience for people. It's not a deeply techie session, so if you're not a network engineer, I'm not a network engineer either. It's just sort of general best practices or things to look out for, rather than kind of going into the this is how you set up your firewall rules on your firewall, and it's not that deep. So it's just kind of just giving you a feel for things to look out for. So I'll quickly go over some networking concepts for Teams, just to kind of give you a feel for why I'm maybe suggesting you things that you would check or you would do. Obviously, Teams is a cloud-based service, unlike on-premises Skype for Business or any other PBX that might be on premises. It is a cloud-based service. It is going to have to touch the internet at some point. And how it touches the internet is very important, how it gets there. So Microsoft have obviously designed it in a way that they want you to get onto their network or their front door as quickly as possible. And what they recommend is that you use local internet breakouts. So that means if I'm in the UK, if I'm in Birmingham, they want me to be breaking out of Birmingham or close to me as possible. They don't want me breaking out the other side of the world. It doesn't make sense, and it's going to lead to a bad experience. So that's something that Microsoft do stress and recommend that you do where possible. And to facilitate this, Microsoft do have local front doors, as they call them, or points of presence, network edge, different terminology, but ultimately it's different. It's various spots around the world that allow you to get onto their network as close to you as possible. And once you're on their network, then it's easier for them to route you to the available resource within the Microsoft network using their own dark fibers, as they call it. So effectively, if I'm in Birmingham and I say connect to the London Microsoft front door, and my service is in, say, Amsterdam, the hop between London and Amsterdam is not going over the internet. That's going over Microsoft's sort of corporate network or their dark fibers, which is going to be quicker and have QoS and all the other good stuff that you'd want on a network to improve the flow. So first thing to check is to ensure that all of your Office 365 traffic is allowed through your network. So you need to make sure that you're aware of all the traffic that is actually going to be going to Office 365 and obviously Teams by extension. And the way you can do that is by reviewing the list of up-to-date URLs, IP addresses, and ports that Microsoft publish and keep up to date. So if they make a change, it will be on that list, or should be on that list. And it's not just Microsoft.com. It's it's third-party vendors that Microsoft might be using for some of their CDNs or for their certificates, those sort of things. So it isn't just whitelisting a couple of URLs. There is a good long list to be aware of. And not only do you need to allow this traffic, but you also need to categorize it. And what I mean by categorizing it is determining how you handle that traffic. So Microsoft have actually categorized it into 3 of their own categories. And those 3 categories are optimize. So that means you need to bypass the proxy. You also need to bypass any SSL decryption that you might have, deep packet inspection, and any content filtering, and also user local internet breakout. Any traffic that Microsoft daemons allow, you need to do the same, but you go through a proxy, and default is effectively following whatever traffic routing rules you might already have in place. You don't need to, and there's no special cases need to be made for that traffic. Typically, the Teams traffic that for audio, video, those sort of things, they will fall under the optimize bracket. So you do need to make sure that that traffic is being categorized and is being handled accordingly. There is a full list of what each category breaks down. I've kind of just boiled it down to the 3 main topics that Microsoft discussed for each category, but there are more. This is just a kind of a very boiled down. I don't want a table that's 50 rows long, but this kind of gives you just a feel for what should be allowed and what shouldn't be allowed. So I think I've already mentioned it's very important that this list will change. This list of rules will change. They will get more rules will be added. Maybe some IP addresses will be changed. Maybe some IP addresses will be removed. It's a constant change. Thankfully, it's not thousands of rules every month. It's just a few changes, but it's something to be aware of. It's not a let me set this up, let me get everything working great. Okay, I never need to look at that list again. You do need to look at that list again. There is a web service stroke API that you can use, and what that allows you to do is maybe get notifications, maybe through a flow or something like that, or maybe an RSS or something, just a way of notifying you, oh, there is a change, I need to implement that change. Or alternatively, some vendors, I think Palo Alto might be one of them, allow you to effectively tap into this API. So that means Microsoft make a change, it actually gets reflected in the networking equipment that you already have in place, which obviously makes it a bit easier for you. And I'll just quickly show you these URL rules very quickly. There's a lot, and they are kind of segregated into different sections or categories. So we've got Skype for Business and Teams, which is what we'll be looking at mostly, but some of these obviously are relevant as well, things like Exchange and common ones, which means they're used between different products, so you need to be aware of those ones as well. But ultimately, if we look at something, let's say like Teams, we've got IP addresses that we need to optimize. That means that they need to not be going through a proxy, and not going through deep packet inspection and all those sort of stuff. And then we've got allow, which is obviously not as strict, and then we've got default. So, and there are quite a few rules, but you just need to make sure that they're in there. And this isn't just something that you should look to do, it's something that you have to do, really. I've been involved in quite a few deployments where maybe they say, oh yes, everything is allowed, everything's fine, we've whitelisted everything, and then we have issues, and then reviewing this list afterwards, there's quite a few missing, or maybe there's a few typos, and so it's key to make sure that it's in place and it is correct. And the categories that I've detailed on the table, like I said, there's a bit more information here that kind of just gives you a bit more insight into what Microsoft are expecting you to do with each category's traffic. And then finally, we have the the endpoints web service that allows you to basically look at the latest updates. So and you can actually open this in a web browser. It'll just kind of show you when they were last updated, and from there it'll just show you what's been added and what's been removed and such. So it's just an easy way of determining what should be allowed and whatnot. Okay, so let's go back to the presentation. This one. Okay, so that's key. That's absolutely key, that one. That's not a nice to have. That's got to be done. Going off the previous slide, avoiding proxies, I thought that made sense just to put that in its own slide. Proxies, they are useful, and that there is times where they need to be used, but for Teams, it can cause issues. Microsoft do recommend that you don't use a proxy, but if you do, then you need to follow their guidance, and they will explain what, if you are using a proxy, you need to make sure that you're allowing UDP traffic and all these other bits and bobs, which I think I might have on that link. I might have on here, where they go down to, if you do need to use a proxy server, then you need to be following these guidelines. Having said that, if you can avoid it, do avoid it. Obviously, you're going to need to whitelist the Teams traffic. You can obviously use a proxy for all other internet traffic. Let's just make sure that Teams doesn't go through it. So I'm kind of running through these because obviously there's a few slides. I just want to drag them for too long, but another thing that I've touched on previously already was always connect to your local Microsoft Network Edge. And like I've explained previously, Microsoft always want you to get onto their network as quickly as possible and as closely as possible to the end user. And the reasons why this might not be the case, and maybe you've not realized, or it's just the way that the network's been designed prior to Teams being used, is where you have scenarios such as a centralized internet egress, where you will have multiple sites that share an internet connection out of a different location. So in this scenario, we have an office in Spain, an office in UK, and an office in France, and the head office is in Finland. And in this scenario, Spanish, French, and British users, when they break out onto the internet, they're actually going across a WAN connection into Finland, and then out of Finland to break out into the internet. And obviously, that's not what you should be doing for Teams. If you're in the UK, you should be going to a Microsoft Network Edge in the UK, and same with France and same with Spain. And if you have a centralized interconnection that's quite a distance away from the users, obviously that's not going to be a great experience for them. So the recommendation here is obviously use a local internet breakout for Office 365 / Teams traffic. You can perhaps maybe set up a routing rules or something where maybe only that traffic has to go locally to the internet and all the other traffic goes across the WAN. There's obviously different ways of doing it, and it's just something to be mindful of, that if you are using a centralized internet egress, it might impact the performance. Another scenario why this might be the case is if you are using a remote worker VPN. So in this scenario, we have VPN users connecting into Germany across Europe, and effectively when they're connecting into that VPN, they are effectively routing all of their internet-bound traffic across that VPN, which means any web traffic they connect to, it's seen as coming out of Germany rather than actually coming out of their local location. So you have these disparate users across Europe, and they're actually all effectively going through a VPN, which is not a good idea really for Teams. Again, the key is getting that traffic to break out locally to where the user is. The recommendation here is that there is a technology when using VPNs called a split tunnel VPN, and effectively what that means is that all of the corporate traffic is sent down the VPN. So any, let's say, internal applications that you need to access to, or any internal pages or any internal traffic is routed across the VPN, and then all of the traffic is routed over the user's local internet connection. So by using a split tunnel VPN, you're effectively allowing the the Teams traffic to route out onto the internet locally, but while still maintaining the VPN connection to the corporate network. Okay, so that's something to bear in mind when breaking out to the local internet. Okay, so one tool that you can use to determine where your internet egress is, am I breaking out locally or am I breaking out over, out of another location, is using Microsoft Office Network Onboarding tool. What this allows you to do is specify where you are currently located, and then it will run a test from your web browser. It will determine where your actual internet breakout is and determine how close that is to you, and whether it's the preferred approach. So in this scenario, I'm breaking out of Helsinki in Finland. So I'm in Birmingham, and obviously it's 1,800 kilometers from where I am to where I'm breaking out, which is obviously quite a distance, and it's also quite a 62 milliseconds to exchange online, rather than they predict it to be a 50 millisecond improvement. So sort of 80% improvement based on if I broke out locally. So that is very much worth performing that test. And what I would recommend is that any location that you're looking to roll Teams out to, quickly run this tool. It literally takes 2 minutes. In fact, I'll see if I can run it now. If I was to put in here Birmingham, it will quickly run a test. Oh, of course, I have to run it in Edge. Of course, I forgot about that. Even though it's Edge, but it's not Edge. Let's just quickly run it in Popper Edge. So if I run it in here, I'll put Birmingham in. It will then determine that I'm coming from Birmingham. My internet breakout is actually in Birmingham as well, and my front door is a optimal one. It's not a suboptimal one. So if we go into details, it will show you that I'm based in Birmingham. My egress is in Birmingham, 2 miles away from me, and my Exchange online front door was London. And so now if I flip back to the slide, obviously here I can see that this front door is actually suboptimal here. So that's just a quick, easy way. Anyone can run that test and quickly determine if there's any local internet breakout issues for that user. Okay. So another thing to be mindful of is peer-to-peer traffic routing. And not to go too technical here, what we have is if you've got 2 Teams users communicating with each other, when they try and set up a media, so like audio, video, screen sharing, they will exchange effectively IP addresses to say, okay, this is my IP address, and the other client will go, this is my IP address, and they will try and route to each other directly on those IP addresses. Which, if you're in the same building or in the same network, you're in the same location, it makes perfect sense because that traffic is staying on the network. It's not going out to the internet. And obviously it's managed from a QoS point of view, hopefully. Now, where this can get a little bit tricky is if you have a WAN connection. Now, again, if it's a dedicated WAN connection, that's absolutely fine. That's probably the way to go. However, there are different WAN technologies such as SD-WAN, which is what they call a software-defined WAN, and that's effectively it's a WAN on top of an internet connection, a VPN, if you will. And that can cause issues where, in this scenario, the sites are connected effectively over the internet with an SD-WAN. So as far as the clients are concerned, they're on the same network as if they were in the same building, but they're not. They're actually in different parts of the country. And the issue here is that both sites aren't connected directly to each other. They both connect via an SD-WAN hub, which is in Berlin. So that means that the Manchester user, when they communicate with that London user, they're actually sending that traffic all the way to Berlin and back. And Teams is none the wiser because it can say, well, I can communicate directly with my other client, so we must be on the same network. And technically, yes, you are on the same network, but it's not the optimum path to get there. So what recommendation can be is to review your WAN topology and determine if that traffic should be allowed across the WAN, or maybe you should block that traffic and route that traffic over the internet instead. And we've seen this ourselves in deployments where you might have, like I say, two offices in almost within a few miles of each other, and they're both with that WAN traffic, that SD-WAN traffic is then breaking out to the other side of the world to come back to that other site that's a few miles away from them. It just doesn't make sense. And that's where you have to be mindful of peer-to-peer traffic and do determine if it's something you want to allow through the WAN or not. So I think I've mentioned QoS already. QoS, quality of service. Effectively, what this allows you to do is prioritize certain types of traffic. So audio is one, video is another, screen sharing. Those are different types of traffic, and they have different priorities. Typically, audio is the highest priority, with video underneath, then screen sharing underneath that. And what this allows you to do is that if a network is congested, then it allows you to prioritize the audio traffic. So if let's say you've got 100 meg internet connection, network connection, and it's being maxed out, what it allows you to do is the network is able to prioritize that audio traffic and then divvy up the rest for whatever's remaining. But that audio traffic has a guaranteed amount of bandwidth to play with. And to do that, you need to set QoS up on your network and also on the Teams client, and effectively ensure that traffic is being prioritized. And there is, as I've said here, there is the thought, well, when you break out onto the internet, at that point, the quality of service isn't actually going to be enforced, even if you are sending it, because the internet is not a managed network by a single entity. It's obviously many different countries of routers and operators in between. So there's no way that QoS will run across that. However, what you need to make sure is obviously the traffic between the user's machine or their phone or whatever they're using and the breakout at the internet, that bit that you do manage is managed with QoS. Even if it doesn't appear that it needs to be, it's always a good idea to make sure it is enforced, which means that if there all of a sudden is a spike in demand for the network, that the team's experience is going to be compromised. There's three different ways of marking that traffic so that it is given the right priority. One way is enabling QoS markers within Teams, and you can do this from the Teams admin center under meeting settings. I'm not sure why it's under meeting settings, because it is also for peer-to-peer calls and everything in between. Ultimately, it is under meeting settings, and in here you can specify the ports that are going to be used and enable the QoS markers, which means that traffic is going to have what they call the tag on the traffic. So when that traffic leaves the client and ends up on the network equipment goes, oh, I can see you've marked this traffic as high priority. I'm going to allow that through with the highest priority. So that's one way of doing it. It's doing it in the Teams admin center. The second way is to configure the network equipment itself to mark and classify the traffic. So on the previous slide, there was port ranges that were defined. With those port ranges defined, you can then also set your network equipment to say, okay, if this traffic is using these ports, then that we know that is audio traffic, and as such, we will give that the highest priority. The benefit of doing it that way is that it will work for all different types of clients. So if you've got an iOS device or a Mac or Windows machine or a desktop phone, it's going to work with all of those devices because you're doing it at network level rather than application level. The other option is that you do Windows group policy objects, and effectively you mark the traffic on the Windows machine. Say, okay, if these ports are being used on this machine, send it with this priority, and that's application agnostic. So if you're using Skype for Business and Teams at the same time, you can set it so both are going to use those same markers. Okay. Another thing that is fairly new, but I think is definitely worth doing when you're planning or preparing your network for Microsoft Teams is to use the Teams network planner, which is found in the Teams Admin Center. This previously used to be part of the Fast Track page, My Advisor Fast Track, which allowed you to do a very similar thing, which effectively gives you an estimation of what sort of bandwidth you're going to be consuming across your internet connection as well as your WAN connection. And effectively what it allows you to do is create all of your sites. So if you've got 3 sites, you can populate all 3 sites, populate how many users you have, populate what types of users. Are they meeting rooms? Are they personas is what they call them, or are they office workers? And you can create your own custom personas, and effectively it allows you to calculate the network utilization of each of those sites. So you can see in this particular scenario, we have a Birmingham site that's got 100 users, and it is determining that traffic is going to use 4.3885 megabits per second across the internet going out to Office 365. And effectively, in this scenario, I had a 10 megabit line, and I've said that I'm allowing 30% of that traffic to be used for Microsoft Teams. So effectively 30% of 10 is obviously 3, and 4.3 is obviously above that threshold. So it's triggering that there'll be potentially an issue with that based on the amount of bandwidth we've sort of allocated to Teams. So absolutely recommend running this tool for any location where Teams is going to be deployed, and just make sure that you are going to be available to run Teams without issue. And I think this again is something that's probably overlooked a lot, where well, we have this big internet connection and we've never had any issues before, but at that point maybe they've not run voice or video traffic across it, and all of a sudden you flip the switch, everyone's using Teams, everyone's calling each other, everyone's video calling each other, and all of a sudden that that bandwidth that was available is easily eaten up. So it's just something to bear in mind, that you definitely need to do this and get this documented before you look to roll it out. Okay, so the next tool to use is network assessment tool. You've probably seen this one before if you're using Skype for Business. Effectively, it's a tool that will go and connect to Teams stroke Skype for Business and run a series of test calls. And they're not very long test calls, but they are there to determine if there are any network issues with making calls within your network. It doesn't test for concurrency, so it won't make 1,000 calls at the same time. It will make one call maybe 5 times in a row or 10 times in a row, and then give you an aggregated result based off of that. So absolutely recommend running this tool. Like I say, it's not a concurrency tool. It's not going to see if you've got enough bandwidth to host all of your users. It's just going to see if there's any underlying issues that might cause call quality issues. And yeah, absolutely recommend running this, and run it multiple times at different times of the day to make sure you're capturing busy periods and as such, and just make sure that don't just run it once and go, oh yeah, everything's fine. Try and run it a few times. The next tools, there's 2 tools here really, are the call quality analysis tools. These are really not so much used when you're looking to roll out Teams. These are when you've rolled out Teams and maybe you have an issue, or maybe you don't have an issue and you just want to ensure that there is a good experience being had by all users. Effectively, by running this CQD, or the call quality dashboard, it allows you to see at a high level what the performance is on your networks. So on the bar charts here, we can see the however many audio streams, and we can see the percentage of poor calls, which is the sort of yellow line chart. And obviously, so for example, in November we had just under 2% of poor calls, and you can kind of monitor that over several months to see if the situation is improving, or if it's getting worse, or if it's staying the same. And then there's many reports. I could probably do a session just on call quality dashboard. But a sample report where you maybe drill down a little bit further is here, where you might have sites and just kind of determine what the poor quality percentage is for those sites, and what the average packet loss is for that site, what the average round trip time and jitter and as such, just to see if there's any glaring issues with those sites. Another tool that you can use when identifying issues is the call analytics, and this kind of uses the same data that is used within CQD, but this is on a user specific level. So in this scenario where we're troubleshooting a particular user, maybe there's a few users at a particular office that are having a poor experience. Call analytics allows you to drill down into that data that's in CQD, but at a user specific level, and go, okay, yeah, we can see in this scenario the poor quality was caused by the network. In other scenarios, it might be that maybe they're not using a certified headset, or maybe it was the far end that was the issue. And it just another tool that, like I say, this is when it's in use more than before it's in use, but it's one way of validating if there's any network issues within your deployment. Okay, and I think that's it. So hopefully that's given you a few pointers on how you may want to prepare your network, how you may want to validate that your network is performing using CQD and call analytics, and hopefully it was of interest.
Do you know what? That was a great session. I mean, one of the areas of which I struggled to grasp when I first started using Teams was the networking. I'm not from a networking background myself, and understanding everything about the accessing the Microsoft front door and the SD-WAN and the reasons for those blockages and poor performance. I really needed to get in my head. I don't know about you, Adam, but I certainly could have done with a session like that, like maybe 18 months ago. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things that does get overlooked a little bit, that you just assume that our network's fine, and sometimes it's not, and you just need to make sure that you're doing your due diligence before you roll it out, because like we all know, if you roll something out and it's a poor experience, then it's hard to win users back afterwards. So
for sure. Well, thank you very much, Lee.
Thank you.
I know that session will is going to be great for a load of people on demand, like Nicole's session. I think there's been two really good sessions. I mean, as Adam mentioned at the beginning of today, this is the first one we did after Ignite, and it's good to get back to doing user groups to extent.
Yeah.
In terms of the next session, and I'll hand over to Adam in a second for any final comments. Just a few things, just to repeat what we said at the beginning of the session. It's on the 19th of December. We wanted to get a session in before Christmas, so we don't have to skip a month as such. In addition to that, I just wanted to flag something that could be, good for everyone who's turned up today. Is there is a new Microsoft Teams exam. This is MS700. It was announced at Ignite, and I have written an exam guide if you happened to considering to take that exam. Now, at the moment, it's in beta, so what that means is that it's not going to come into GA for another couple of months. You can only take it once, and the results are not out until the end of the beta period. So if you were to take it now, because it came out on the 4th of November, then you will probably not get the results until the new year, essentially until it goes into GA. So we would recommend, as part of the user group, that everyone considers taking the Microsoft Teams exam. I have taken it. I've sat it. I think it's a very fair and well-rounded exam. Some of the stuff that specifically for Lee's session today, you will need to know in terms of how to use the network planner, what ports are going to need to be opened for Teams. Those are all things that you will need to know for part of that exam. So you can access it on Microsoft365pro.co.uk. If you go to the home page, then it is the last blog that I've written. As Adam said, it's been so busy since Ignite a few weeks ago that it's the only blog that I managed to squeeze in. But also as well, if you do have time, then I would recommend going to the Microsoft Ignite site. So if we go to the Ignite site here, if you go to 2019 highlights, and then go to the on-demand sessions, all of the Microsoft Teams sessions are now up. So I'm just gonna pick one. So when it finishes loading up for me, if I come down here and just put in Adam's name, then you can see Adam's 2 sessions up there. So Adam, myself, and Vesa have all done sessions that are recorded and on demand, but you know, they are part of over, I think it was 200 sessions on Microsoft Teams. You can find out about compliant call recording, about contact centers, their sessions on all the new functionalities such as private channels, multi-window. So I would recommend, there is something crazy like 40 hours worth of video sessions. Adam, Vesa and I all have about 38 hours still to catch up on because things have been so busy. So we want to be able to provide things to help where we can. So I just want to thank you very much for attending today. It's been great to see you all again. Adam, any final things from you?
No, not really. I mean, a big thank you to today's speakers. Great sessions, and I mean, I know I nagged about it a lot. I mean, these sessions are all recorded. Please visit our YouTube channel, and yeah, that's it. I'll see you next time on the 19th of December, wearing Christmas hats, I guess. I mean, we said it now, so I think we need to follow through with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll bring mine along. So thank you ever so much for coming. Have a great evening and see you next month. Take care.
Yeah, take care. Bye.